2026 might seem so far away, but in San Francisco, politics is already here.
We're talking about Board of Supervisors, school board, city college, maybe even a new Congress member. And also, depending on how things shake out, the political map of San Francisco could look very different 15 months from now.
Today, we're breaking down the local races to watch, the power shifts already in motion, and what kinds of candidates and coalitions might actually win in this moment. This is Between the Fog and Fury, a podcast about San Francisco politics from an Asian American perspective. All right, y'all, how we're doing? We're getting into it. Yep. It's episode 3, and it's of course things come in threes. So we have the lovely and talented and beautiful Natalie G
Oh,
in the ether.
yes,
Hello, how are
I'm good.
you doing okay, Natalie?
There's been a lot of things happening,
Yeah.
but I'm good.
Well, we're glad you can join us and be here virtually. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm kind of having like a flashback to like 2020. And there would be sometimes a voice in the air. Yeah. Then there'd be people not present, been present, but you're present with us, Natalie. I take you here.
I am here. I am there in spirit and online.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're gonna talk about 2026, the races that are coming up ahead. Um, and let's start with the basics. What's actually coming up in 2026?
There's a lot. So we got 5 supervisor seats up on the ballot. It's all the even districts 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. Each one has their own power to shape how public dollars get spent, what priorities are prioritized, and basically who gets heard at City Hall.
Yeah, and on top of that, there are also some really important down ballot races. Some seats on the Board of Education are up for election, as well as City College. So these seats have the power to change the direction of these San Francisco institutions. Yeah, and so we're going to talk more about not just what's on the ballot, but like asking why does it matter? Why do these people who are running have any impacts on everyday people? Who they represent, like what's being left out, who's being left out, uh, what kind of leadership really does this moment demand? And I think it's gonna be exciting to talk about it. So I'm really just jumping right in, like why should people care about board of supervisors? And I don't know, Natalie, you work with the board of supervisors like daily. Maybe you can handle that.
Yeah, so in San Francisco, there are 11 Board of Supervisors that represent 11 different districts. This is the legislative branch of the city. The executive branch is the mayor's office. And in San Francisco, we do have a strong mayor, so the mayor has a lot of power compared to the board. The board really just works on legislation, policy, and they also represent their constituents. So if their constituents have any issues, or things that are wrong with the city, they reach out to their representative on the board and they let them know.
Yeah, and I think what's really important is that, because San Francisco is split up into 11 supervisorial districts. So there's around what, 80,000 people per district or so, it's like, yeah, roughly. And then like, so those 80,000 people, and it's geographically based. So like District 8, for example, is in the Castro, Noe Valley, Twin Peaks. That's where I live. Um, versus District 6 as more south of Market, Mission Bay, Rankin Hill, the East Cut. Yeah, and out in District 2, it's like the Marina, like I find it's fancy areas. Yeah.
Yeah.
In District 4,
I'm out in District 4. It's the sunset, but each district has their own characteristic as well as different demographics that live in district. So I want to say like in the southeast side of San Francisco or the southern side, even on the western side, there's a lot more working families out here compared to District 2, Marina, maybe more affluent compared to the rest of the city.
yeah, and so there's so many different districts, and all the even number ones. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 are up from grabs. We don't have to go talk about the people that are kind of in that because it hasn't nobody's really announced yet. But like, why should people care like then how these people show up for our communities, like how they impact us day to day, like policy wise? Are there things that are happening right now, the board of supervisors, Stanley, that you can speak to?
Yeah, so we just finished the budget in June, and the supervisors got to shape a small portion of that budget to prioritize what services that get funded, what departments get funded, things that we will see in our daily lives in as San Franciscans. One thing to note is that the supervisors, they have each term is 4 years, and they can serve up to 2 terms consecutively because there are past supervisors who have served up to like 4 terms because they didn't serve it at the same time. And I'm talking specifically about Aaron Peskin. But another story, another day. So having a supervisor to represent you for 4 years is quite a long time. So if you have projects that you are passionate about in the community, like installing a stop sign or making sure the street is paved or making sure that there's no illegal dumping, your supervisor also helps you advocate for those issues at the city level. But they also make different policy decisions. So some supervisors might prioritize more cops. Other supervisors might prioritize we need to house our homeless folks. So it really ranges depending on who is in that seat.
Yeah, and so Jeremy, you've worked on these supervisorial campaigns before and mayoral campaign, lots of campaigns. Like, when we are asking questions of our candidates who are running, what kind of questions should we be asking, I guess?
Yeah, I think it's really important to look at the whole body of work that this candidate has representing. Are they brand new to politics? Are they someone who has worked in the community for decades? And I think the best indicator of future success is their past successes. So were they able to advocate for a new park in their district? When Well, not as a supervisor, or are they like a business person who owns a small business and has rallied behind the business community? I think it's just really important to just know where this person came from, because that shows you who they're listening to and who's going to hold them accountable. Because oftentimes, especially in politics, you have say climbers that just come in, they want to climb the political ladder and don't really have connections in the district, don't really have connections, or are people who aren't really accountable to anyone. And we don't want to elevate those kind of people, because if they vote in ways that are against the will of the people, then you get pushback. You get recalls like we're seeing right now.
Mhm. And then speaking of recalls, want to talk about the school board stuff. And there's an election happening next year for more school board members and more city college board members. But think school board generally has just been a hot mess, right? So yeah, let's talk about it.
Yeah, for sure. I think like SFUSD, they're in a structural deficit. A lot of cost cutting measures have been happening as of late, but they still need to cut more. School closures are still on the horizon. And so we'll see in this next cycle the candidates that come forward and put forward a vision for San Francisco Unified to make it whole and make it the institution, the strong institution that we know it can be. SWSC has seen its fair share of ups and downs, especially during COVID, where free school board members got recalled because of, I feel, their lack of communication to the public in a time when people really needed to have strong leadership from the board, especially when all of their children were at home and people were concerned about learning loss.
Yeah, we're talking about politics from an Asian American perspective, and it was mostly Chinese Americans. Sorry, that were really behind the recall, leading the recalled efforts. Natalie, do you want to speak to any of all that stuff? Because I know you're very involved with youth programs from organizing.
Yeah, I think, there was definitely a lot of frustration during the COVID times, which kind of led to a lot of the recalls too. But even right now, we are having a recall in San Francisco, and the District 4 supervisor is currently facing his own recall because one, I think about the Great Highway issue. I think he put a ballot measure on there where majority of the city voted for it, but people in his own district mostly voted against it. So there was a clash about just representing the different priorities in the district. So there's that battle going on right now.
Yeah, let's talk about recalls generally, because this is kind of I feel like not a new thing, but an innovation. Let's say in San Francisco, like not everywhere you can just recall people, right? And put up the ballots and stuff.
Yeah, not every locality, but I think in San Francisco, there's a relatively high bar, but it is an achievable bar as we see.
Yeah, and so, to catch folks up if you're not paying attention, the 3 board, three board of education, folks were recalled. The DA, Chesapeake was recalled, and, now we're in the middle of an election for Proposition A, whether Supervisor Joel Engardio should be recalled mostly because of Prop K and all this Great Highway stuff. Which, by the way, full disclosure, I voted to close the Great Highway. I'm an impeachable C member. It's a highly contentious issue, and I'm kind of thinking of staying out of the whole recall stuff generally because I think it's a decision that should be made by the voters of District 4, and I don't know. It seems I feel out of place making it.
Yeah, I completely agree, that really this decision should be solely up to the residents of District 4 to decide. It's their supervisor, it's their future. They should be the ones weighing in on this.
Definitely, I think, there are both sides of residents who are very passionate about this issue. There's people who love the new Great Highway Park or Sunset Dunes, and there are people who are against it because it does affect a lot of working families who utilize that road to go to work, to go to school, or to a doctor's appointment. So there are definitely very mixed opinions, but I also agree that ultimately it should be decided by the residents of District 4.
Yeah, it's honestly pretty complicated. And let's talk about what happens if the recall happens. Like who gets to become the next District 4 supervisor?
Yeah, I can speak a little on that. So, if the recall is successful and Joel Gardio is recalled, the Department of Elections certifies the vote. And my understanding is that pretty much almost immediately, Joel Gardio will no longer be in office. And in cases where there is a vacancy, the mayor has appointed authority. So, Mayor Lurie will have an opportunity to appoint someone to the District 4 seat, if the recall is successful. And that candidate or that person, whoever they are, will have to run for a full term come November next year.
Actually, 2 times.
Okay.
Sorry. Actually, the next person who is appointed or whoever has to run 2 times because this is actually the first time we've ever seen a recall election with a supervisor. So next June, California, San Francisco is going to have a primary election in June. So whoever that person is appointed has to run for that seat to serve the remaining term for Supervisor Ingardio's seat. If they win, they have to run again in November of next year. So it's actually 2 elections for whoever is in the District 4 seat, and in June, because it is an open election too, there could be other candidates jumping in to run against the mayor's appointment. So it's gonna get very interesting in District 4. I do also want to just tie back to the accountability piece. It's not just being accountable about who they represent, but also look at who's funding them. Is it people who live in the district who are donating to their campaign? And this is all public information at sfethics.org. Or is it like wealthy billionaires or like big corporations who are funding them? Looking at who their funders are can give you a sense of like where their priorities or who they want to represent in the future.
Yeah, you always got to follow the money, and I mean, as anything in politics, it's always about wild cards. It's always about the rumors. Can we talk about rumors? Who do you think? Who's inside baseball? This is inside baseball. Like, who are you thinking will be the if the recall goes through? Who would be the mayor's appointee? Who's in the running?
I don't think any particular name rises to the top, but my personal feeling is that if the recall is successful, Mayor Lurie will appoint someone with some city hall knowledge, some government knowledge, but not someone who is right there front and center.
I'm hoping it's Mabel Tang. That's just name.
Hope that we can hope that. That's so cool. She lives in South San Francisco now.
Let's go back to Mabel Tang. So, she was a former supervisor in San Francisco, and she actually won when the supervisors had at-large seats. But she lives in the Sunset. She's done a ton of community work in Chinatown. She used to also organize with Jesse Jackson when he was running for president in like the late 80s. So she bought like Jesse Jackson here to like hold rallies in Chinatown in SF back in the late 80s. The other name was Philting. He was our former assembly member for the west side of San Francisco. He just termed out last year, and I think he's doing consulting right now or teaching at UC Berkeley, but who knows? He also lives in District 4, so there are choices.
Also, I heard Albert Chow, is that her name? A moderate? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know much about him. I just know that he's a business person, rooted in the business community in the Sunset. So I mean, he has ties and he has experience, and yeah, we'll see what happens.
Anything is possible.
We don't know. And then we have to talk about the Pelosi question.
Will she, won't she? Is she running for re-election in 26? I think she's going to, because the midterms are here basically, and we have to win back the House. And she is a prolific fundraiser, and she can pound the pavement, dollar for dollars like no other. Have these galas and everything, and we need her. We need her. But so I think what might happen, and I don't know if this is the episode where we just predict things, but you could have like, if she does run, and I hope, and I love Pelosi. Um, she endorsed me for DCCC, so full disclosure. But if she does run, and then we win back the House, and then things are on the right path, she might just like step aside. Is that something that could happen? I don't know.
Yeah, it's very possible that she could run for re-election in 2026, win, and then decide to resign. And then that would, I think, in my opinion, would give San Francisco a bit more breathing room to really analyze the different candidates that are vying for her seat. We really are at an inflection point in this country where we're trying to figure out what does the Democratic Party stand for? What does San Francisco stand for? What is our city's place in this nation? In 2026, it's going to be hard for San Franciscan voters to really focus on this particular race. If it was in 2026, then there's a lot going on. There's the alphabet soup of ballot measures. There's all these down ballot races. The governor, yeah, the governor too. West nose race. If Nancy Pelosi resigned or retired, like after she wins re-election in 2026, then it would give San Francisco breathing room, more space to really concentrate on what we want out of our Congress member.
I would have to disagree. I think if she runs, she might stay on because Nancy Pelosi is a powerhouse, right? Both in DC and in San Francisco. She was the first female Speaker of the House in 2007. And then she's been a trailblazer for a lot of women here. She did a lot of work on the Affordable Care Act during Obama's time, and right now she is like leading the fight to save Medicare. So I think there's a lot of fights that are not done. So I don't see her stepping away from that.
Okay, we also know Scott Wiener is sort of like has been rallying and raising money and doing all the things, and is very much expected to run if and when Nancy steps out or decides not to run again. But that would open up a whole other cascade of like seats, right? Like, so we got to talk about that shift that would happen, right? And then also I know that Nancy Pelosi can fight for us, and we need her. And I love that. I love her for it. So thank you, Nancy.
Let's talk about
But yeah, let's
shift.
talk about.
Yeah. I don't know if you all remember last year, or maybe it was 2 years ago, where Scott Wiener announced to run the seat. And then Nancy was like, "I'm not retiring." But that would have opened up a huge political shuffle in San Francisco. It would open up the current state Senate seat for someone to run. And that could be someone like Matt Haney running for the Senate seat, which will open up the assembly member seat on AD 17. People who are currently on the board might be interested in that seat. So it's going to cause another huge shuffle, at least in the political climate of San Francisco.
President of the Board of Supervisors, Rafael Mandelman, has already opened, I think, an exploratory committee for a state senate run in 2028. So this allows him to fundraise for that office, and should that seat open early or a different seat open, he can very easily transfer those funds.
Mhm. And that's when Scott Wiener is termed out anyway, right? 28, is that right?
Yeah, he's termed out in 2028.
Right. So huge shifts are coming in San Francisco, and where San Francisco goes, it seems like the rest of the nation is gonna be
Yeah,
similar.
yeah. As we know, San Francisco is never a boring place for politics.
So, but now how can we speak to this next wave of candidates as um, how can we make sure they engage us as Asian Americans, especially the progressive Asian Americans? Like, because all these people will be running for every which race and whatever. I mean, what should we be asking of these folks?
See, I think we should be asking for a real strong commitment to bringing about change in this country. No more of this. Let's just focus on the low hanging fruit. Let's just maintain the status quo. Do do incremental changes here and there. Like that's all thrown out the window now, especially with Trump and just the massive changes, the massive destruction of our institutions that he's bringing about. We can't just do incremental change anymore. It's not enough. We have massive homelessness, really expanding in every single major city in this entire nation. We have regular everyday folks just struggling to survive, even upper middle class folks struggling to survive. If you're a family of four and you make like 150K, you're considered low income. We need to change that dynamic in our country, where corporations are just getting richer, corporate profits are getting larger, and what about everyday folks? We're left with crumbs.
I agree with that. I think we have to focus on a lot of affordability issues. Housing, groceries, right? Like groceries are getting higher every day because of tariffs, because corporations want more money for their goods. When I talk about housing, want to make sure people can afford to live in the places that they are in. Otherwise, we're just going to exacerbate the homeless crisis.
Yeah, for sure. I think we are witnessing a moment, uh, a big inflection moment in the progressive movement about like what do we really stand for? What values are we willing to throw down for? And I mean, I come from the Elizabeth Warren, like she was so inspiring in 2020, and she was always about big structural change, right? And she always had a plan for it, right? She had plans, and she was talking about big moves, like big swings. I think that's what people are hungry for, and I think they're thirsty for that. They're willing to um, just throw down and walk precincts. About 50,000 voters were mobilized in Manhattan. Yeah, by Mandani. Yeah, or New York City. Sorry, in all of New York City, but that's crazy to be 50,000 people are walking precincts. That's insane. And he has simple message. It was about affordability. It's about freezing the rents. It's about free buses. It was about childcare, right? It was very simple, simple messaging. Not like this. I, I love Kamala, and I wish she was our president, but she had the weirdest messaging, and she only had 107 days. Go buy her book, and so that's what I loved about Bumdabi. He at least has a plan, and people can argue about it, but that's fine. I think we can argue about it, but I think what's missing, well, from what I see, is the Democrats like coming in with like some big plans. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. I what I love about Mamdani is he's really reaching for the moon.
Hmm.
And I know a lot of people, a lot of like pragmatic Democrats are saying like, "Oh no, these plans will never come to fruition." But like, hey, you shoot for the moon, you land in the stars. And if we land in the stars, I'm totally fine with that. But we need to go big because that's what this moment demands. Because hey, Trump is going big. Trump is going big everywhere, dismantling everything. Yeah. And so we need to show the world, the country, what we really stand for, what we care about, and what we're willing to fight for. And if it's, a childcare, if it's lower cost of goods, if it's lower housing, lower rents, like I'm all for that. Let's go big, and if we fall short, we fall short. But at least we're aiming for something.
Yeah, Natalie, we're in our final segment now about old guard energy versus new energy. Um, Question to you, Natalie: what kind of leadership does this moment demand?
I think it demands a mix of both, right? You have Olgar who knows how the systems work, but they have to be also willing to accept new guard who brings about fresh ideas. And I'm talking about new guard who also are established in the community to be able to really highlight and bring and uplift the issues that communities are concerned about to decision making platforms. And I think we also have to be mindful of like who's funding these like new guards who are popping up. Is it community grassroots people or is it just like wealthy money coming in because they have a certain agenda that they want to push?
I mean, here in San Francisco, we have the abundance movement that is taking form as part of, formerly Grow SF and Together SF and Abundant SF, now Blueprint.
It's just a rebranding of the same old groups. They're iterations from the same money forces. All these rich people that want to control San Francisco put their money together into these organizations, and those organizations put out, in my view, propaganda. If you get 100 mailers in your mailbox all saying the same thing, you're like, oh, okay, I guess I should start thinking like this.
Yeah, I mean, it's seductive. Let's be real. Like the messaging that like, why can't everything be abundance and we just have cheap and plentiful housing and you know, it assumes like an elasticity in the market. And I mean,
Is it cheap though?
but
'Cause, like, my take, at least hot take on abundance, the whole movement is another rebranding of trickle down economics, right? It means building more, which is great, but, like, it downplays who owns it and who controls what gets built. And then it also takes away strong tenant protections, labor standards, and equity rails that we do have in place right now in order to build more, which building more is great, but again, building for who?
For real, I think Natalie is absolutely right. You have to follow the money. There's these things called independent expenditure campaigns, and it's like
So, like, yeah, super facts.
and that's like as much money as you want, right?
Yeah. If I am Mark Zuckerberg and I feel so inclined to donate $10 million to a super PAC supporting ballot measure, a candidate, I can. That gives me undue influence over this measure or this politician.
Yeah, and so when we say like these modern establishment or forming blueprints, it does sound slick. It does sound like ooh, I want. It sounds easy, honestly. It sounds like oh, more housing so that things are cheaper. And I think what is real, and that I invite folks to do is to do the research to really read the nuances of why San Francisco housing is the way it is. I would say the progressives have a harder um, sorry, I'm saying that, but the progressives have a harder message on housing, and it's usually around 100% affordable, and like we can't get anything less than 100% affordable, which to me also seems extreme. So I'm kind of somewhere in the middle of those two. When you have these candidates going out there and just selling you a bed of roses, and I can deliver this because it's if it's too simple, like something's wrong.
I was listening to this interview by Obama once, and he was talking about his mom, and his mom was had this saying that was like, "Oh, you should always be distrustful of slogans."
Mhm.
Yeah, I think, like, the
Yeah.
whole building more housing thing, it's great, like, I want more housing too, but is it really affordable? I think if we look at San Francisco in the last 15 years, we've built a lot of housing, but our rents are still continuing to go up, and there's still, like, 60,000 vacancies all around the city that landlords are just land banking and sitting on and not renting out. So I think it's valid to just kinda critique that and also see what has happened. It's a lot the whole abundance thing to me, it's a lot of top-down planning, which can be okay sometimes, but it dismisses community-led solutions. And especially in historically excluded neighborhoods, it doesn't take in accountability or buy-in from the community or the surrounding community that has lived there, and I think that part is the problematic part for me.
I think with housing, we're often too focused on supply and demand. And I like a lot of people will say like, "Oh yeah, we rents are too high. Let's just build more housing." Done. But it's more complex than that. When we learn the rules and the laws of supply and demand, that's how the market can work. That's how the market should work if it's perfectly elastic. But we know it's not. It's very easy to manipulate the market. If you have the vast majority of resources, of course you can create scarcity. Of course you can inflate the prices of things. That's why we have anti-monopoly laws.
As we started to wrap up, just thinking about this last segment here, you know, are we as progressives learning from the past, mistakes? Because we lost, the board of supervisors, we lost the GCCC, all these things. Are we shifting our visions, and approaches, or are we saying side? Are we still fighting ourselves? Like, and like what, I'm curious for your thing.
I think we're still in a bit of an identity crisis. A lot of the movers and shakers are part of the old guard, and they're very kind of stuck in their ways of approaching moderation, change, progressivism. But things have shifted, especially in the age where everything is online and we're spending really the vast majority of our times online. That things have to change. We have to change how we approach these topics. It's not necessarily that our values are wrong, but that it's a recognition that, hey, the way we talk about housing, the way we talk about income inequality, the way we talk about preserving democracy, it's not working. Let's do some reflection and introspection and come up with a way to reach a broad coalition of people, young people, working class people, the elderly.
Yeah, and I gotta have to chime in about Katie Porter, who's running for governor. I think she's a progressive that we should take note of as far as messaging, as far as voter engagement. She's going to both, the farm workers in like Fresno and Tulare County, and also going to Silicon Valley and the crypto money and the people there, people who can kind of break down messages in a simple way for an everyday voter, especially like why this policy change will make a difference. We need to pay attention at those messages. Natalie, thoughts?
My thoughts, I think, it doesn't matter if you're progressive, it doesn't matter if you're moderate. When it comes to working class issues, it affects everyone no matter what part of the political spectrum that you're on. Affordability, housing issues, transit issues, both public transit and also private cars, those are ecosystems that affect everyone no matter where you lie on the political spectrum. Tech workers are part of the working class. They are closer to people who are living in poverty than they are closer to billionaire CEOs.
Yeah, I mean, I have this picture of at the People's March. I was holding the sign. It says "Everyone against billionaires," and I was holding it proudly because you really do have to ask yourself, like, who do you have more in common with? Like, do you have more in common with like working people, like nurses and teachers and firefighters and even police officers, as tech workers, or do you have more in common with these billionaire moguls that are trying to ice everybody out?
I just want to say something super basic. It's called the working class, meaning if you work, if you are showing up to a job daily, you are part of the working class. If you are not showing up to work, if you are sipping on mai tais and letting all this passive income come in, then you're not part of the working class. But if you show up to a job, you are part of the working class.
I like that.
We're gonna have now this new segment called "Feel the Fury." We'll have many words for this. I don't know, but feel it because this is between the fog and the fury, related to San Francisco or politics or both. And I will set a timer.
I can go first. So, kind of my hot take is we should all love San Francisco like Lady Gaga does. So, Lady Gaga recently performed in San Francisco as her Mayhem Ball tour. Unfortunately, I did not attend the tour, but I did see a clip on TikTok where she talked about San Francisco. And so she said, some places I went to, they just didn't understand me, but not here. When I came here to San Francisco, I was accepted and I was embraced. I was upheld by this community with so much dignity and so much pride. You made me feel not alone. You were letting me know if we love you here, then they'll love you somewhere else. Come inside, have a drink, and we'll take good care of you. So, in my opinion, that is what truly encapsulates San Francisco values. And, I think it's something that this city still represents.
Hot. That was the man right there. Oh my God, I love it.
Oh
Natalie,
my god.
you have another.
for a moment or
Yeah,
those
yeah, I
people.
think the hot take is still re-emphasizing that it doesn't matter what part of the political spectrum you're on, working class issues affect everyone, but also like progressive moderates, like we should start working together. I think one thing is that a lot of people are always separated, like, oh, you're part of this crew, I'm part of this crew. We're not going to work together. But there is opportunity and room to work together and collaborate because at the end of the day, all of us love San Francisco, all of us want to improve San Francisco in some way. We just have different ways of getting there. So, let's collaborate. Let's see if we can have opportunities to work together. That's not just a black and white issue. Because at the end of the day, again, affordability, housing, transit issues, they affect everyone. Everyone who's part of the working class. Doesn't matter if you're progressive or moderate. Doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democratic person. Like it affects everyone. And that's what like
And that's yeah, that's not feel the
Yes, I
fury. I'm just bring fury moments because I am a little bit pissed off. All right, ready, set, go. I am so tired of people who say San Francisco should look more like my suburban place that I live with, so clean and so nice and so. No, if you want to live in a city, you're gonna have to deal with like a lot of different things that you don't see in suburbia. You might have to get out of your car and take a walk. You might have to take public transit, and you have to gonna deal with people who might be frustrating on public transit, but that we act as a community. Maybe you have to take a bicycle or get in a bike lane. I think that people who live in cities should embrace urbanism. It's kind of the weird way to think, I guess, maybe for some, but for me, I love living in a city. I love San Francisco, and with all its faults, that means I get to work on these issues. I get to ask the right questions. I have to, you know, breed for solutions, but you can't just complain and want it to be like Concord because I did not leave Texas to be in another Concord, California. Yeah. Well, that was our fun new Feel the Fury. This has been Between the Fog and Fury. My name is Michael Wynn. My name is Jeremy Lee.
And my name is Natalie G, aka your favorite policy nerd.
We'll be back next time with more ways to see clearly, fight smart, and build something better together. Yeah.
Yes.
That's not it. Everyone.